Hey guys, I'll bring Fisco up here. Give it a few minutes and let everyone kind of filter in. We're announcing as we speak.
Hey, just checking. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. Serenity Shield team, super excited to have you on here. I've gotten a couple people DMing me, telling me that they're pumped that we're having a conversation with you guys.
Morning, everyone. Well, actually, I guess afternoon right now by 1 minute on I don't know. It's sometime somewhere in the world. How is everybody?
Doing well, Justin. Thanks for jumping on. Good to talk. How about yourself?
Doing well. Decent. Work's been a little crazy right before Thanksgiving break, so today's been like I'd be pulling my hair out if I had any, I guess. Let me put it that way.
Busy times and everything having to do with Web3. And I'm sure for you guys too with the whole custody thing. But we can get into that in a little bit.
Awesome. I'm going to bring everybody else up. If you guys haven't shared this space, please do. And make sure that your channels get it sent out. Sorry, I think I'm cutting in and out. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I think we're waiting for Carter. He should be here as well, and then we can probably just get going.
Hey guys, good evening.
I was kind of hoping. Go ahead. I was kind of hoping that this wouldn't be a smaller Twitter space because of the holidays, but it looks like because of the holidays, it might be slightly smaller than normal.
Well, we can wait a couple minutes here to get going as well. Usually it fills up around minute 5, a little bit more too.
Yeah, no worries.
Serenity guys, I know a lot of you guys are Europe based. Do you have any sort of holiday in the fall this time?
So that would definitely be a question for Nikos because I'm US based, but I'm also interested and curious.
Guys, I'm really sorry. I'm having some sort of connection issues. I'm going to log out and come back in, okay?
Sounds good.
Oh, let me bring him back on here. Let's see if that works. That worked, Dan?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm late, guys. I was also having some connection issues. But I'm here now. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, all good. Thank you guys all for joining us. We'll wait a second here to hear from Nikos. I know he was having some connection issues, and then we can jump right into it.
Yeah, what's actually happening on my side is that when you guys are speaking, it's coming through my earpiece after I've connected as a speaker, but when I'm a listener, it's going to my loudspeaker, so I'm not sure. So I'll just have to use you from the earpiece. So I'm struggling to hear his own problem a little bit.
Well, I think we can manage. We can manage there. But
yeah,
thank you again for joining us, Serenity team. We really appreciate it. I'll pass it to Delts to kick off the first question, but I've heard from quite a few people that they're excited for this conversation, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Fisco said, thank you guys for joining. I actually just talked to Carter, and he is actually on vacation, and his Wi-Fi is very, very suboptimal, so he unfortunately won't be joining. But Fisco and I can handle the Twitter space. So I guess I want to kick it off by asking you guys, like, what is the history of Serenity Shield, and can you guys share a little bit of that backstory and tell us what you guys are all about?
Well, I'll jump in with that. So since Nikos is having some trouble, I'll give you the short and dirty. Essentially, it's real simple. We had a group of people that we had sort of coalesced within this space, within crypto. You know, we all come to this space looking for. Look, let's be honest. We're all looking to make money. That's how we all came to the space originally. And luckily, just by sheer how the universe sort of combines itself and brings you to a point. There were a group of us that got together and decided to help one another and cover and, make sure that we were vetting each other's ideas and things like that. And we developed a very strong friendship and relationship and high level of trust. And that was the core of the group. And one of the people in this group was already working on some ideas for building crypto projects, and he brought this to us, and we sort of grew out of there, out of a mutual desire to help one another, help the space, because, I mean, as you know, this space is rife with all sorts of malicious actors left, right, and center. And it's very difficult to find anybody in this space that you can trust until they show you that they can be trusted. And so that was how it originally started, and then we went from there. We had a shared vision of what we wanted to see in the space and how we wanted people to be treated, and the sort of project that we wanted to see in the space. And it kind of grew from there, and now you see what it is developed into.
That's awesome. It looks like Nico's requested again, so I'll bring him back up. But yeah, I think I agree with most of the things that you said. Like, everyone, you kind of figure out who you can trust once you've been in the space for a little bit, and then you kind of develop a pretty deep connection with them, and then you kind of know that you have your inner circle that you can move forward with. I wonder if, Fisco, do you kind of feel that way as well?
Yeah, it's definitely a great space right now too. I was just talking with I don't even remember who. So I apologize if you listen and have this conversation with me. But I was talking with someone early last week about how there's so many people in the space right now that are here for passion. But then there's that also like section of people that are here for the space, like just trying to make money however they can. And you definitely have, it takes some time and it takes some getting to know people before you can kind of build that level of trust to where you want to be part of a team with someone, where you want to bring someone into a project that you're working on. But it's definitely always exciting when you see another team such as yourselves, such as what we got at Shade here, that's found that core team of people that can work on a project that they're passionate about, that can do it as a little bit of a career and start to do things that are changing the space. I'd love it for Serenity guys, if you could jump in and give a summary of exactly what you're building. I know you've touched on how you came together and what that you're trying to solve the problem for the space, but what exact problem are you trying to solve, and how does your solution fix that?
Yeah, hi guys. First of all, can you now hear me? I hope it's connecting.
You're good. Yep.
Yeah, I've had to change to my personal account. I was having some problems from the team account. So look, just to elaborate and come back to what Dan was saying, I think a bit more before we touch on what Fisco was asking there. Something very, very paramount that we have to kind of go back and realise why we created Serenity Shield. I know there was a bit about how we came together there, but the whole purpose for it. My own story was born out of the fact that I had been doing a lot of Forex trading back about a decade ago before I had made my way over to the crypto space. I've got my own sort of very, very bad story of something that happened on an exchange probably about 18 months ago. And when all of this stuff came out this week with FTX, it brought it all back because I was already feeling all of this 18 months ago. Now, the industry sort of united in the sense that they've come together and they're now spilling this narrative that we all have to be doing everything we can to get off exchanges and we shouldn't be holding our assets there. That was something I was saying 18 months ago based on the situation that we went through with one of the major exchanges. There was an update that was done during the Bitcoin's initial crash from the 70k price. And obviously, having been a leverage trader for years, something I've got a lot of risk management in place for. What actually happened was that they decided to do an update to their system whereby no leverage traders could unlock positions during the update process. Now, without bad-mouthing or naming the exchange itself, I can say it's a major one. And at that point, that's when I really truly realised what was happening in the market and the manipulation that was taking place. It was clear that we were locked out of our accounts. I had to watch a significant portion of capital bleed away to the point where I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't activate losses. I couldn't close positions. This was a problem for a lot of people. The mainstream media did nothing about it. They didn't pick up on it. If you had gone to Twitter at the time, it was saturated with comments and lots of people that were very obviously irate and angry, lost a lot of money. And at that point, no one seemed to care. Now, bringing it back full circle to the point where we are in time now, the narrative at the moment in the media is that this is a big issue. This has always been a big issue. This isn't something new. This is a problem. This is why you have hardware options like ours out there. The problem being that they're not using blockchain. We're blockchain maximalists. We believe in the technology. We believe in the fundamental ability to use technology to make things better than the status quo. And that episode that happened was where I turned to a couple of our other colleagues and says, how do you feel about starting this project? Let's go at it and tackle it, because it's time we take back ownership of our assets and what's been happening and do something about it. Little did we know we would be here 14 months later now. We've grown very, very organically. We're starting to see a lot of traction. We're getting a lot more coverage in media. People are starting to take us more seriously. When you have a vision and a roadmap initially, it's hard for people to really sort of understand that, to accept it. For us, digital rights, the terminology that we came up with, we've been pushing this for a long time, that digital rights are human rights. And by that, digital rights, to define it, we mean self-sovereignty, autonomy, privacy, decentralized control of your funds, you name it, and freedom of expression, accessible access for all to Web3 technologies. And these are all things that we've been very, very passionate with. And that's why we've shared the space with so many good people we've met along the way that can see where we're trying to take the technology. And the saddest thing that has happened in the last couple of weeks, it's not even so much that the money that's been lost, it's the way that the progress that we have all made collectively using blockchain and using the technology that has been given to us has sort of regressed. It's all been like kind of taken away from us. And one thing I want to say at the top of this call, and I'm giving a very passionate introduction here, is that nobody in here that's listening and nobody that's a builder, a developer, a creator should be disheartened. What's happened has happened before, and it will continue to happen as long as big exchanges, central authorities get their way. The whole point of us being here talking today is that decentralization is the future, and I and you guys, I know, believe in that. So that is why this was created. What we're doing is solving the blockchain problem that's came out of all of this. We're trying to solve that with a blockchain solution to that problem, not a hardware solution. We're not shifting it to hardware. We're not doing anything that we shouldn't be doing. We're literally using the technology that's been handed to us and making things better. The industry at the moment is doing everything it can to push the degen narrative. It's doing everything it can to make the general public feel that cryptocurrencies are Bored Ape Club and NFTs and all of these useless tokens. Meanwhile, it is doing very little to actually shine a light on the projects that are doing something to change the lives of many unfortunate and impoverished people globally. We have the chance collectively as a group to collaborate and do something about that. And that's a powerful time to be alive. I'll go to the grave trying. That's all I can do. And I know that there's others in my team and other teams that I've met that are going to try and do the same thing. While people are using cryptocurrency and blockchain to create things like, it's the analogy I would use is it's like using technology back in the day to play Mario Kart and play Donkey Kong. Meanwhile, people were creating things like Dropbox and WeTransfer. That's who we are. If they want to play the games and create these metaverse games and do all that, that's great. There's a market for it. But we're trying to build a serious product for serious consumers. So that's hopefully giving you a bit of an insight as to why I'm passionate about this and why we're passionate as a team about this, how we came about it, and what we're trying to solve on chain. I know that's a very long and very positive and passionate response, but I think it's very important that we try and actually, as a group, start speaking up against what's been the pushback that we're all facing at the moment.
Man, I don't know if the tone of my voice right now reflects how amped hearing you talk makes me, but that makes me just want to like pump my fist up in the air and just let's go, because that's totally right. I mean, these types of conversations and teams like yours, teams like Shade, teams like some of the people that are involved in the stablecoin summit that we have coming up, like these are the teams that really make me excited about the future of the blockchain space as something that's real and legitimate and sustainable, and especially for all of us that are in this space building these like core infrastructure level products that are going to be essential if blockchain has validity long term. It's really disheartening to see things happen like FTX, obviously, and those types of situations, but it's also hard when media and the kind of vibe that most people get around blockchain is stuff like it's only NFTs and games and it's just all kind of a joke. When really what we're working on here is these essential technologies that are building the future of industry, the future of finance, the future of personal custody for digital data ownership.
Well, and I'll add something to that, Fisco,
Yeah,
and following along behind what Nikos was saying. I think it's important for all of us to take a moment to accept the fact we all need to recognize that blockchain is not going anywhere. It is here to stay, whether we like it or not. So the important thing is, and like Nikos was saying, we have a very unique opportunity to put our stamp on it and to make it a technology that works for us rather than against us. And I recognize that a lot of people say things like that, and then Sam Bankman-Fried is a great example of this. A lot of people will say this, but they don't put their money where their mouth is. We're really doing our best to make sure that we build community, because at the end of the day, it's fresh air, blue sky that makes sure that we hold ourselves accountable and hold one another accountable. And if we can build the principles that we are here to see and pursue into the technology, we have a much better shot of making sure that technology works in our favor down the road. It's gonna be used by the big boys. It's a matter of just time. In fact, it's already started to be adopted. So I'd rather be in at the beginning, trying to make sure that all that, like you said, the basic infrastructure of this industry is something that will benefit everybody, not just a precious few that have their hands on the levers of power.
that's 100% right. I'm based in Minnesota in the United States, and we have a small blockchain association that meets once a month. But some of the companies in Minnesota, like Cargill and 3M and Kellogg, some of these global leaders in industry, they have representatives at these meetings that I've chatted with, and all of these Fortune 500, Fortune 50, like massive global companies are already looking at blockchain solutions. And I think we are, just like you said, at an interesting point where we have this opportunity to shape the blockchain future around decentralization, around data ownership, around personal digital rights. Whereas companies on the large scale, on these more traditional companies, may or may not have those same ideals in mind while they're building out their own blockchain solutions. So we have such a crazy opportunity to be on the front end right next to some of these massive companies that are adopting the same technology as we're building to form the entire industry in a healthier, more consumer, more rights oriented fashion. But either way, that's a great way to start off this podcast, I think, for sure. On that side of things, part of what you mentioned in there was obviously digital rights and more specifically data ownership. To circle it back to Serenity Shield a bit, can you guys talk about the exact solution that you built just for the community here and for those people that aren't aware of exactly what you've built and how that works into the digital rights and data ownership and custody conversation?
Yeah, so I'll pick that up from there. Basically, Serenity Shield created the Strongbox to push for people to advocate for their own custody over their own assets in their own wallet. And we really wanted to create a security protocol that would allow you to do these things safer. And when I first joined the blockchain space, just as a little side note here, I had no idea that decentralized exchanges existed. I came in on Binance because I saw Bitcoin was pumping to like 12,000 back in 2017. And, like everybody else, I tried to FOMO into the market. Personally lost a lot of money buying high and selling low and having absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I felt kind of burnt and dejected by the industry, at least by the community that I was frequenting, on Telegram and Discord, and kind of, put it on a back burner for a bit. But what was really lacking was the education on my part that decentralized exchanges existed, that custody over your own assets in your own wallet was the way to go, and that exchanges shouldn't be trusted. And, I was even in the space for about a year to a year and a half before I even started realizing what that actually meant. So where we come in at Serenity Shield is we offer an end-to-end encrypted solution for you to store your keys on chain. So you don't have to worry about paper wallets getting lost or thrown away. You don't have to worry about hardware wallets being corrupted, lost, thrown away, damaged, anything that comes with that. You actually don't even have to buy any extra hardware to try to keep track of, because we store all the data that you want to submit to our Strongbox through an NFT that's end-to-end encrypted on the secret network blockchain. So 24/7, 365, anywhere you are in the world, if you have an internet connection, you can access your assets if and when you need to. That's really the 1,000 or 10,000 foot scope. But our goal here is to lead with education and connect with other thought leaders in the space to help reach as many people as possible to really, push the message that self-custody is the way to financial freedom. And I'm not saying from a means of like financial advice, because certainly this isn't that, but I mean the idea that when you have ownership over your own assets, the decisions that you make in regard to those assets being yours 100%, you're actually controlling your own destiny. And there's so much in our everyday life that you don't even see, where you're not actually controlling anything. You might just be like plodding along or making decisions based on what an algorithm shows you. I'm talking about like doom scrolling on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the things that we do to melt our brains day in and day out. You're not actually deciding anything. You're just serving as like the conduit of the computer, right? So like we're no better than the Matrix and in the pod. But I guess if we really want to go down that route, Serenity Shield's about allowing people to recognize that you're plugged into a grid that you might not want to be. And by offering, sorry, my dogs are going to bark, by offering our tools with end-to-end encryption and an easy user interface, that we are moving to help people essentially regain ownership of their own assets and their own decisions of what they do with those assets, and specifically to end of life planning as our first, like USP and product in that way. We want to make sure that people have a channel for them to choose what they do with their assets if and when they die. I mean, we're all going to die, right? So it's, to me personally, not even as a member of the team, but as a consumer who is waiting for this to hit mainnet so I can use it, my wife's going to have no idea what to do with paper wallets or even where to find them for the most case. I probably already forgotten about stuff I've hidden in the walls over the last 5 to 6 years. The difference with Serenity Shield Strongbox is it's an app that you'll eventually be able to run on your phone. Right now it's browser based, and I can sit down with my wife and explain what an NFT is and why it's the key to securing my assets on chain, and that in the event of my death, here's how you go to this website and reclaim them. You don't have to worry about jumping through 10 different decentralized exchange hoops, or getting a phantom wallet and loading it up with USDC to go pay X, Y, and Z and initiate permissions on smart contracts or any of that. Like, the way our system is built is when you set up your Strongbox, you put in your nominee for who you want to get the assets in the event of your death. And once you've passed away, or the smart contract thinks you're dead anyway, because you have failed to interact with it for essentially the dead man switch through push notifications, emails, texts, whatever way you set it up with the smart contract that you want to be contacted. Once that protocol is breached and it considers you dead, it moves on to your nominee, and we'll reach out to them in the same way with push notifications and let them know that there's assets waiting for them to come claim. And there's no middleman. There's no, I mean, man, I've been in business for 10 years, and the things you do with attorneys when they want your money before a contract is signed, they're your best friend after the fact. It's like, pay me for every second of a breath that I take to answer a question from you, and you run up a bill so high. And Serenity Shield is about giving people the ability to make their decisions with their own finances and what they want to leave. Anything that you find valuable that can be digitized and stored on chain, whatever you want to do with that post life, you can make that decision while you're living now, and know that a smart contract will carry that out programmatically, and your loved ones don't have to worry about dealing with an attorney who may not be so kind after the contract signer has passed. So that's essentially a whole long, it's like technical mixed with emotional, but I mean, that's who we're, people, right? You use computers to make a tool to do something better than we can trust ourselves to do. So everything I always answer will always be like a technical, emotional mix. I hope that helps.
No, that's totally valid. I've got a couple questions. I think, firstly, I've always been a fan of your guys' since the first, maybe it was like 6 months ago we hopped on the first call and I met your team. And it's just such an elegant solution to something that's, even in traditional finance, a really, really bring it on chain, and especially to have it applied in a context financially that we're all extremely interested in a space that we're all super passionate about. I'm super excited about what you're building. I think the first question probably stems off of what we were talking about right before. Where do you see the importance of education in helping people to realize the importance of custody, the importance of digital rights, and what do you see the roles of specific teams and the current Web3 community in kind of bringing that education to everyday users?
So I guess the first part to unpack that question, I mean, it's a big thing there. And really, before we can even get to a point where we can truly understand how we solve that problem, we need to first look at the fact that, I mean, I think it's something like 3 billion people worldwide don't even have a bank account. You know, there's no easy way for them to even interact nation to nation, person to person, even if they wanted to through a centralised authority. So that I mean, that's the first problem in itself, that there's just inequality globally that I'm sure we can all relate to in some capacity. But there's a gaping hole at the moment in the way that money is transferred and handled. Never mind before we get to the point of our own assets and how we then protect our savings or extra income that we have. Not to mention as well on top of that all the tax implications, inheritance that goes with that as well. If we're really serious though about how we get to the decentralisation part of it and how we actually educate and implore people to do more to try and take control and ownership of their own assets, then I think the education that has to happen is what's been going on in their lives pretty much from the day they were born, with the banking system, the financial system. And there's going to be a lot of people that don't like hearing these things because it's very controversial. But for me, growing up in the world that I've grown up in, and like yourself, like everyone probably listening here at the moment, we've all grown under the central authority system. We've all been very well aware of how the banking sector works. Like most people, I've had to have a mortgage, I've had to have a job, I've had to pay high levels of tax, lack of control in my decision making, and even now with lack of control over where I want to invest and make decision and make choice in terms of where I put my finances, that's very clear that this is becoming a bigger issue. And you could probably argue a lot of what happened with the centralised exchanges is probably in some way related to that shape or form, whereby it's not, let's be honest, it's not really in the best interests of the centralised authorities or any centralised exchange to see people start to decentralise all of their assets. Nor do I think that that's probably the way to go. I always think in life the truth or the best solution is somewhere in the middle. And I think that when it comes to decentralisation of finance and decentralised assets, I think the reason we have to get to that point is to give people a bit more choice about what they do in their space with their lives when they want, without being punished for taking time to make a decision or prolonging the time they make a decision. That can even be simple, for example, as moving your physical cash to under a mattress in a home and watching it devalue due to the rate of inflation that's happening around about. And that's really not fair. You know, someone might want to be saving up and making a long-term decision, and meanwhile they have to live in a world where inflation is spiraling out of control. And that's where, again, this is an area you guys are very interested in, but stable coins can play a role. And this is where it's very important that people realise that cryptocurrencies themselves aren't always, or don't always have to be, some sort of speculative asset. It can also be a stable coin whereby it gives you a bit more choice, you know, and there's obviously a lot of advantages and disadvantages to stable coins. I know that's probably something that we'll probably delve a bit deeper into, but the world has to want to change, and I think we are a long way away from that. I don't think it would be fair for me to say that I think tomorrow we're going to see globally everyone want to decentralise all of their assets or all of their wealth. But there does have to be better measures in place, particularly in the developed world, whereby even, let's take an example of something like post-death, like Justin was talking about, where you might hold a considerable portfolio of assets or finance and you find out on death that to pass on to loved one, that loved one's going to be taxed very heavily, despite the fact that that's already had tax paid on it already. We're getting into the realms of very suspicious and fishy territory, but the decentralised way that we can do that is obviously through taking measures into our own hands and making sure that we're doing everything in our power to control and protect what we've worked so hard for in our lives. That's where I was saying earlier, I don't think the solution is to have a fully decentralised system, and I do think there's a much more complex conversation that has to happen at various levels between governments, central authorities, banks, developers, creators. And it's back to this point where I do think there's a middle ground, Fiscal, where there has to be a point where human beings get to decide for themselves what they get to do with their money that they make, that they work for. And at the moment, as I said at the very top of this answer, when you think globally at the moment, there's about 3 billion people that don't even have a bank account in the world. I mean, how do you even interact with the world that we live in a global economy? It's just not giving anyone a fair start in life. And I do believe that decentralisation could be a way to bring about more equality if it is handled correctly, because that is the key in all of this. Dan, I know that you're quite passionate about this. You might want to potentially elaborate on some of that as well.
Well, yeah, I was actually just waiting. I didn't want to step on your toes there. I mean, here's the thing, man. Nikos, you were saying that we're not expecting this change to happen overnight, and he's absolutely correct with regard to that. But I think part of that, and it gets back to the education component of this. The reason we're not making that jump into Web3, well, I think the technology still needs a lot of development. But more importantly, and getting back to the point I was trying to make, most people don't realize what that entails. I mean, I'm sure that everybody listening to this AMA today is familiar with how we have become the products ourselves in the Web2 ecosystem. We have become the commodity that is traded. Our information, our comings and goings, the information that we create on a daily basis just with our behavior and our lives, that in itself has become the very product that and I will add to that means that we are under constant surveillance. The only way to break that cycle is to adopt this new technology that decentralizes and creates security. But people don't realize they're not informed that is the current paradigm. And so if we really want greater, further, deeper, broader adoption, what we have to do is we have to educate. And we have to educate not just people in the space, because clearly there's a deficiency there, and it's unfortunate. But it's better to just acknowledge that it's there and deal with it as it is than to wish that it were different. But it also means that we have to start addressing the fact that there's a significant, monumental ignorance, and I mean this in no sort of negative way, but there's a profound ignorance amongst the general public about what these technologies do, and more importantly, how they benefit people. So what I will say is, I think that we will start to see a lot more adoption once we get better at communicating and explaining to people. Look, we're going to have to make that jump sooner rather than later. If we want to, and this gets back to the original point I was making, if we want to beat the big guys to the punch and make sure that this technology works for us rather than against us. And I know that makes me sound like a broken record, but I think it really is a point that bears repeating often and loudly, because nobody likes to be surveilled. Nobody likes to be a product. We have the ability to make both of those things of no longer a thing of the past, and I think that it's high time that we do it. So,
absolutely agreed to both of those. I think really kind of synthesizing a bit from both of you is this. I personally, as myself, am a big believer in Web 2.5. This kind of synthesis between what we have now and really, Nikos, I loved what you said with focusing on choice. and allowing users to have a choice between what we have now or some of what we have now and some of what's better. And again, Dan, what you said too with education, that Web 2.5 thing does not happen unless education happens both to the degens, to the Web3 users currently, but it also doesn't happen if education doesn't come from us as the Web3 users, as Web3 builders, and go to people that are passing laws and bills and people that are regulating and the industries that are adopting these products. So it's really, I think, the education piece. And part of the reason why we do this Twitter space where we host other teams, part of the reason why we're very apt to support anyone that's on that education side, that's on that regulation side, is because the DeFi, the Web3 community now needs to really essentially, it's essential for our growth that we take strong hold on the conversation around this and not necessarily manipulating it or changing it to be something false, but a stronghold in the sense that we need to be very present in these conversations as people that are building in the space on the early end here. So 100% agreed with what you guys both said there. I think that really finishes up the education piece for now as well. I did want to hop back, and this rewinds us a little bit, but I wanted to ask a product focused question just so that you can clarify for everyone listening. But when you talk about taking private keys and putting them into something online, something that's an application, rather than writing them down physically, that makes a lot of people's hair kind of stand up on edge. So taking us from education, putting us back on your product, could you explain for people in a little bit pointed of a question, how is that safe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get that. So really the safety of it comes down to the end-to-end encryption that we've used when we built upon Secrets Network. The reason we wanted to build on Secret Network is that we don't even want the keys that are created for the Strongbox to be accessible to the user that's actually even creating it. Because what we find is most hacking that's successful is socially engineered. And a lot of time, I mean, I'm literally DMing with somebody on Discord right now who bought during our pre-sale, and then they're thinking that maybe they actually did it on a fraudulent website potentially, but I also don't even trust that that person's legit. So like I'm even being careful in trying to provide support. And so we know that the whole space is full of that. So one of the reasons why we decided to do the end-to-end encryption, in which, by the way, Serenity Shield at no point has any idea what you put in your box, what you choose to put in at any given moment. It's all end-to-end encrypted in the browser. We don't even want our users to have access to those keys to inadvertently give them to somebody. And, you know, that scam that goes around all the time, as soon as like a project or a token begins to gain popularity, user accounts are cloned, people are DM, they say, hey, I'm Justin from Serenity Shield, and I want to make sure that your Strongbox is validated. Can you share the key with me so I can check it? Like, we want to remove that from the equation, right? To try to do our part to remove or at least lessen a hacker's ability to steal data and important information and encrypted, which should be encrypted, to our users. So, I mean, it's a smart contract that's going to be audited by companies like Certic and others. We're going to do our part to make sure that the loopholes that exist in the space now don't exist in our products. That's going to come through bug bounty programs, inviting white hat hackers to come in and try to break our solution, and always making sure that like our devs, they do this now. They basically challenge each other to break the code. So keeping up with that spirit, that's what we can do to, you know, maintain the integrity of our code to make sure that our users' data is protected. And at no point do we ever have access to it either, which is kind of the beauty of it in my mind, because we're advocating for people to advocate for their own assets, to advocate for themselves, to be like the stewards holding the custody of their own stuff. And to do that, we completely forego any ability to actually help recover that stuff on the other end either. So it's kind of like, you know, you got to trust yourself to be careful, and we're giving you a tool to use as you see fit, if it's the right tool for you, and it might not be. And we know that our solution isn't going to get 100% adoption, and we're not even aiming for that. And, you know, we're looking to help the people that want to take advantage of saving or using blockchain technology and ledger technology to maintain security and access to their assets anywhere at any point in the world. And, you know, that's going to be the client that we serve and the one that we're interested in working with. And It's a hard question to answer because, yeah, we're going to have to build a reputation of trust in the space. But that's what we're doing here today, with a docs team, having AMAs left and right, trying to make sure people understand what our ethos is and why we're bringing what we're bringing to market. But just like anything else, it might not be a product that's right for everybody. And that's completely okay, too. And it kind of does tie into the educational aspect as well that we were just talking about, where we educate people on the benefits and drawbacks of all sorts of different ways that you can secure a wallet. And someone might be really happy with paper wallets, and that's fine. Our product will never be better in that way to that person than a paper wallet already is. But other people that are considering using something like a Ledger or a Trezor or a Nano, anything like that, it might be better for them to say, okay, well, rather than having to worry about keeping this on a hardware solution that I then have to essentially worry about securing, why don't I back this up on chain, which is my favorite part of the whole product, because we're all here today because we think blockchain, like technology, like actual tech on chain, has value. So what better way to actually back up the value of your assets than use the chain that they're built upon? So it's like a really cool circle and self-serving in that way. So that's why I'm passionate about what we do too. But again, yeah, not an easy question to answer, but I really appreciate you asking it. And that's as honest and straightforward as I can be, because honestly, in your shoes or in the consumer shoes, I would definitely want to make sure that I did my due diligence with a team building a solution that they say will protect my keys. It does definitely kind of go in the face of everything that we've seen so far when people are like, don't share any information ever. But this is different because you're not doing it through a DM. You're not doing it through push notifications texted to you from someone you don't know. You're connecting a DEX wallet to a DApp, and you're interacting directly with your smart contract, which becomes the Strongbox that is currently going to be hosted on Secret Network, which is end-to-end encrypted. So we're doing everything that we can to make sure that people see that we're not here to harvest, sell, steal data. I mean, that's not what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. And that's where education comes in again. But it's definitely a different product from kind of what the general sentiment is out there for some of those things with keys. So the education piece does become super important there. But it's an elegant product, and again, just like what you said, it's for users that are interested in it, and some people won't be interested. And for many people, it's an elegant solution to a problem that a lot of us are going to have to figure out as far as custody and as far as passing on assets long term. So very cool. Let's move on to another couple questions here, just to kind of wrap up the space since we're getting towards the end. And I do want to have an AMA if any of our community members want to jump up here. But one last question for you as far as the future of Serenity Shield. What are you looking at for your current building timeline and product hitting the market here? And then what's your long-term goals, or where do you see Serenity Shield going 5-10 years from now?
For sure. So shortest term goals in terms of end of Q1 is where we're shooting for mainnet. And that's why we're actually been so busy and putting in the legwork this quarter, is trying to build the partnerships that we'll actually have set up to have B2B relationships with, other products, services, and companies, which is good for everybody. So, we're putting in all that time now. So hopefully 90 to 120 days out from launch, we already know who's going to be picking it up to help generate revenue for the company. So that's I guess our Q1 short term. Long term, we really want to, I'll actually going to go back to something that Jackal said, and I brought this up on a call a bit ago with another group too. But what I really loved about when we were talking to them, the dev team was saying, like, we're here to build on blockchain tech, and that doesn't have to be exciting and flashy for anybody but us. They said basically the idea, like, we're going to use the technology of public ledger and the security of blockchain to create something that basically a platform that other people can be creatively build upon. And that's where I see Serenity Shield going too. We really want our tech to be essentially a building block for other people to adopt and use in creative ways. And that can come in many different forms. We could be assisting, a payment gateway for security options. We could be assisting attorneys or medical companies in transference of sensitive data back and forth. Stuff like in the tech sector, MSPs that have to share information back and forth for like data security regulations and HIPAA. We could be a part of that stack, really, to make sure that the only people that are gaining access to the information are the ones that need to gain access to the information, and that there's nobody able to like pick off anything in that transference of data. So really, I think the 5 to 10 year solution for Serenity Shield is going to be massively implemented in many different technical sectors and B2B relationships.
Awesome, very cool. I know we've said it on the Shade protocol side and heard it similarly from Jackal and yourself, but these I'd consider them infrastructure type products aren't necessarily sexy, but they're fun for the teams that are building them and for all of the integrations that get to happen with them. It's building the base of the future of this industry. So super excited about what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
and also excited to continue conversations of how Shade protocol can work with you.
Same. And like you nailed it. It's not sexy. I mean, a single Lego is not sexy, but what you can do with a whole set is pretty freaking cool. So like, we just want to be Legos in this Web3 space.
Absolutely. Although props to Dalton, I think the Shade protocol marketing is actually pretty sexy. But that's an aside. As far as AMA now, I would just thank you guys all for coming and speaking, and then everybody here for listening as well. I'm just going to turn it over to an AMA. If you have a question, feel free to raise a hand with the emoji or request to speak, and Dalton will bring you up.
Yeah, as we're waiting for people to ask some questions here, I'll give my brief thoughts just because I've been listening as everyone's kind of spoken and answered some questions, and I'm super stoked for you guys to be where you're at, and I'm super stoked for everyone to be where they're at. I guess my background specifically, Marty, if you could hold on just for like 30 seconds, maybe. My background specifically is in insurance. So this product to me is actually extremely cool, and I personally already have some ideas in terms of like what it would mean to integrate the Strongbox into DeFi specifically in terms of like the Shade protocol. So I think that would be a really cool route for us to go. Also personally, I am a very I guess libertarian minded person in regards to rights, in regards to responsibility that I should have and that I get to I guess execute on. And it makes me really happy that people are starting to come to the conclusions, like teams specifically that are building products, that these thoughts, these ideas are important. They mean a lot to the individual operating in this space, because this space, you're correct, Justin, doesn't have a middleman. It is person and product. And so there's a lot of responsibility on each of us, not only as users, but on being part of teams that are building products, to kind of have that like fiduciary like responsibility to those that are going to use the products and make sure that they're set up in a way that is safe, secure, and sustainable. So again, I won't rant too long, but I love your guys' ethos. I love the product that you guys are building, and I'm very excited to see how it integrates into a DeFi ecosystem potentially like Shade.
So let me jump in on that real quick, because you brought up a couple of really good points. You know, you come from the insurance industry. I similarly come from the retail financial planning industry many years ago, many lifetimes ago. And it was clear to me when we first started building this solution, the very obvious applications in, like you said, insurance, financial planning. I'll use an even more recent example. It doesn't just have to be at the retail end. It could be at the very highest points of holding critical data, critical information for. Let's use FTX as an example, because he's sort of the whipping boy now, rightfully so. You know, he was the single point of failure. Sam Bankman-Fried, I should say. He was the point of failure in that system in terms of security, in terms of making sure that access to information, critical information, he was the gatekeeper, so to speak. What our solution also allows you to do, and one of the applications we will be working on, is giving at the institutional level, giving people the ability to pass information on with a track record that can be shut off when that when that access is no longer supposed to be there. So it gives people a lot more oversight on who has access to your information, and it does require permission. And that's the important thing. You get what we're trying to do is we're trying to give people the ability to dictate who has permission to access their data and who doesn't. And they ultimately have the keys in their hands, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, to make sure that that's what happens. And the application of that ability touches literally everything. So I think characterizing us as an infrastructure project is absolutely accurate. It's not sexy. But it's absolutely so fundamentally needed in this space that I think that our future is bright, and I'm happy to be able to be surrounded by so many like-minded people in this regard.
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Nikos.
Just a very brief point as well. Just when you mentioned the insurance sector, one of the guys in our team, Hughes, comes from the insurance background. It was one of the reasons we brought Hughes in was we saw the long-term game plan of potentially going down that route as well. You're definitely thinking along the correct lines. Just very in brief. You know, I think one of the things that we all struggle with at the moment with blockchain and Web3 is that most projects aren't really coming up with tangible ideas of ways existing Web2 companies, corporations, offices, whatever you want to call it, employees can use the technology. There isn't really a lot of great ways for them to do it in the real world at the moment. In other words, it's not relatable. Okay, so to be relatable nowadays really probably does require being a bit boring, because you're just trying to create a service, a product that can make their job better, that can make their services better, can make it more efficient, more affordable. And Web2 has been doing that for a long time, ever since the dot-com boom, where companies have been really trying to outdo each other and compete. And I was listening to, I think his name's Josh Brown, he's on the CNBC Halftime, or they've got another show called The Compound, talking last week, and they were laughing about blockchain. You know, they're just not taking it seriously. And they summarised by saying that they're open-minded about blockchain, but until someone comes up with something that shows them that it's going to be used for something other than NFTs for artwork, then they're not really going to take it seriously. And that's the problem. To go back to what Fiscal was saying earlier on as well, I think he asked us a double-barreled question whenever I answered the second part. Collaboration in this space is going to be the most important thing. The biggest threat to ourselves is ourselves. Individualism in this space will kill us. If we think we can do it alone because we think our project's the best, we're sadly mistaken. One of the reasons I loved Shade from day one when I came across you guys was the opening line in your statement. You guys are an array of applications, right? And the word array, for me, said it all. You understood that it doesn't take one application, it takes a whole suite of applications. That's exactly what we kind of said. I remember on an AMA months ago when Justin says we are one tool in a shed of tools or a suite of tools. We can't solve the world's problems with one tool. We're one small product that can help with one thing in your life. It might help some people, it might not be necessary for others, but what it can certainly do is solve a problem. And that is where, when you've identified the insurance market, you're looking at a product, you're looking at a service, and you're saying that can help them. That's all this is. That's all this has to be. It doesn't have to be complicated technical jargon. It doesn't have to be lots and lots of convoluted webs and maps of diagrams and schematics that we present to people to try and convince them to invest. It just has to be something relatable that people can actually get excited about from a specific sector.
Oh, I love this, Dan and Nikos. I love the way that you guys speak, and talking to you in person, I can more so hear you guys in the content that I read from Serenity. So that's just a really cool thing for me, because I can now kind of picture you guys like writing the stuff that I've read, and hear it in my own head. But just before I answer really quick, we will make good on everyone needing to ask questions. Marty, if you have a time crunch, let me know. Red, if you have a time crunch, let me know.
No, I don't have a time crunch. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think what both of you guys said is completely correct. I will say that infrastructure can be sexy, but only if you make it useful to the person that you're trying to have use it, the end consumer, right? So like, it doesn't have to be like sexy, but if someone goes, oh wow, that's super convenient, that actually makes my life really easy, like you said, Nikos, then it becomes this kind of sexy object that people are excited about. Maybe not in the same flashy way that someone's excited about an NFT or things like that, but it's a useful flashy, and that's kind of our ethos as well. Like, we don't want to be the flashy kind of popular, like, oh, this is so cool, and influencers are everywhere. We want to be the tangible use case flashy, where people are like, yeah, I use Shade because it is the easiest, the most efficient, and the, I guess, just most useful tool that I have at my disposal in terms of DeFi. And so I think that's kind of where we like to go. And in terms of the collaboration effort as well, you guys are both, again, hitting the nail on the head in regards to, like, we are all just one application. We're one piece of the infrastructure. Like, infrastructure doesn't become infrastructure if there's only one thing that's built. And so there has to be this system of different products that work together that create the underlying infrastructure that then boosts up the users and everyone else involved. And so our ethos has always been, if you don't work with someone, if you don't work with other protocols that you think will make sense, that are building cool products, then why the hell are you participating? Are you just here to get rich? Are you here to just try and boost your own name? Like, there's no point to be in this space alone. And so I think we've tried our best to make that a reality in who we partner with, how we partner with them, and moving forward in the products that we build. And so I admire you guys so much, because that is your ethos as well. And so it's very cool to hear that, and it's very cool to have you guys kind of on the same page.
Glad to hear that. On you go, Justin.
Yeah, quickly, just on that point about no one comes to the space alone, or shouldn't anyway. Even the Serenity Shield team as it is took about a year to put together. It started with a couple of people and an idea and a telegram. And then as they met other people in the space they knew they could trust, they were onboarded. I'm talking about myself too. I didn't even join. When I joined the company, it had already been rolling for 6 to 8 months. And I was brought on around in January because Nikos and Dan trusted who I was as a straight shooter and a real person. And, we built a relationship in a couple of different communities, and that's how it came to be. So, even our ethos is that internally too. Like, we're not just going to jump at someone saying, hey man, you want me to get you followers and this and that and a pump? And we're like, definitely not. No, we'd rather have this be the slow steamroller for 5 to 10 years before it actually pops. And if it never pops, that's fine, because that's the speculative asset part of it. We're much more interested in the infrastructure building through partnerships with like us and Shade and everything you've just hit on. So, that's why we know it's a good fit as well. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of elaborate just from the marketing side of things. You touched on influencers and sort of blindly just leading with a message. That for me has been the problem ever since I first came across to the crypto space, the blockchain space, whatever you want to call this. To take a concept, to take an idea that you have, and to just give it to an audience because they happen to like crypto. What does that say about what you're trying to create and what you're trying to sell? It tells me that you're here for the quick buck. It tells me that you don't have an idea about what you're trying to achieve. It tells me that you don't have a manifesto. And probably it comes from the fact that this is all new for even them. They might be someone that came from a working environment. They've never had entrepreneurial skills. They've never had a business of their own. What we brought to the space was corporate experience, professionals from lots of different environments, people that have ran their own businesses, and we're trying to do something better in this space by cleaning up the way things are done, the status quo. And the guys will tell you, they can tell you one of the things I'm most passionate about in the background on a personal level is fighting marketers in the crypto space. I don't really tolerate. I can say that openly because I'm genuinely very, very Yeah, I get angry about it. I do. I get angry about it because it's a complete waste of funds. It's a complete waste of time. It's not organic and it's not necessary. If you're good at what you do and you've got something that's needed and you create a story, a brand identity, you raise awareness and you're consistent, because it takes consistency to build brands, and you don't steer off your path if you believe in what you're doing, and you're dynamic in the sense that your product and services change with the technology around about it, there should be no reason why you can't have success and why you can't at least try and steer in towards that. So the point you make about influencers, I even hate that word. It just shouldn't even. We should ban that from the dictionary, the lexicon, because the idea that you're influencing someone, we get it. That's what marketing is, but influencing in the sense that has been used now for the last 3 or 4 years in this space is immoral. And if we're preaching digital rights, well, that doesn't suit with the kind of manifesto that we have. Hence why I do talk to projects like Shade, why I do talk to projects like Secret, Jackal, others, because I know that we share those philosophies. This isn't difficult. We all have a belief system. We all see the world in different ways through our own eyes. The only thing that we can all kind of agree, the people that I've met in this space, is that we're trying to help each other. We try and work together to make things good in our own life. If you stick together, it's the yin and the yang. Karma, I believe in that. We're strong believers in karma. It's big part of the lotus symbol behind what we created as well, which is peace and tranquility in an otherwise dirty space, which is the crypto space. Lotus is surviving in a swamp complex, so it gives you an idea even to the whole concept and premise of what we're trying to create is that peace of mind, that tranquility. And if we don't work together as projects and as creators, then we're just sort of kidding ourselves on about what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, we're aligned on this, guys. We really are, and I look forward to exploring options as the months and years go by, because this will be a long-term thing that we don't have to accelerate and don't have to rush. This is a great opportunity for us to build. The market creates opportunities, right? Everyone that's panicking about this is probably in it for the wrong reasons. When you hear Cam in our voice, it's because it was exactly what we predicted would happen, and it would wash out the dead wood. And those that are actually strong, you will see them consistently market. You will see them repeat their message because what they're building is real. When you're not building something real, you very quickly disappear. The charlatan nature is that they don't last very long. So we're in a good space now, guys. All of us, Shade, Serenity, Secret, anyone in that sort of cosmos ecosphere, and then in some of the other wider protocols that are doing great things as well. We're in a good space at a good time, and it's developmental phases, the way I look at it.
Very, very well said, Nikos. I know Dalton and I have to jump here in a couple minutes, so let's go through our 2 questions and then we'll wrap up this space. But I couldn't agree more. It's really about the core of the project, and that's why Shade Protocols not phased by the bear market, because we, just like you, trust in what's being built, trust in the long-term vision, and are really, really passionate about being in it for the long term. But Marty, I'll bring you up and you can ask your question.
Hey, thanks. I'll try to be quick. So just like piggybacking off of what you guys are saying about collaboration and stuff, which I can definitely see the value of like you guys providing a real life use case, such as like custody after you pass away or whatever, and then Shade doing the sexy side of the DeFi, which gets like the crypto people native interested in it, and then the combination of the two kind of bolster each other. In the wake of the Tornado Cash stuff, we saw like privacy projects kind of like do Twitter Spaces and stuff together and all this stuff. Like we can collaborate, we can do better. What are like some pain points that you guys have experienced with collaborations with other projects or privacy projects that kind of like hold up that process from like it being just like all hands on deck, let's do it immediately? Like what kind of impedes that a little bit?
Sure. No, it's a fantastic question. Actually, very well considered, because I think about this from my own, and let me strip myself out of Serenity Shield for a moment, and I see the problem with blockchain generally. I was talking about the guy, I think it's Josh Brown or Josh Thompson, I can't remember his name, from the Halftime Report, who was talking about they can't take blockchain seriously until they actually see it move forward. A lot of partnerships, they talk about doing things together, but very rarely it materialises. And the reason it probably seems to happen is that I think a lot of it's conceptual. They don't either have the funding, they don't have the resource, they don't have the team. Whatever the reason might be, it seems to not go anywhere very quickly. Now, to ask back to Serenity Shield and putting that hat back on for a second, you're asking what pain points we felt. I can categorically say that we haven't felt any, because we've had lots of calls with potential partnerships, but we quite quickly killed them because we realised that they weren't at a point in their roadmap where they were ever going to be near ready. And this comes back to the point about the washout that I was glad to see is probably going to happen, is that all of that deadwood and all of those projects that were based on hype probably will not survive. The guys that are going to be here and are still doing these spaces you still hear the passion in their voice. That's where the partnerships will emerge, and that's where the evolution will go to. You're talking about real life partnerships right now. There's two projects on here, Serenity and Shade. You've given one use case there. There's also other things that we've explored that are very, very tangible in the sort of mid-term rollout. What I would say the good positive thing here is that we are actively communicating, and that's probably the biggest difference. Where I think on a lot of spaces there's a tendency to create some hype. People get passionate and they say something just to get the audience engaged, and maybe they even feel that emotionally. But when it comes down to it, then work gets in the way. They've not got the funding. From our point of view, we're a fully self-funded project. We've never relied on the community funds to get us through. We're very lucky in that regard. The people that backed us, the people that we approached, again, because we've got that corporate experience, we've raised funds before at a very, very corporate and high level. So we do have that experience. To do these kind of things and have these ventures in life, you can't rely on a crypto community to buy your pre-sale, to buy your token, and then that fund has to be used to create your plan. We had to do it the other way about. We wanted to create the product first, and then the token will come later, and they go hand in hand, but at the moment it's product first. So to answer your point directly, the reason I don't think we've seen the pain points is because we do have that business experience that we can close that down when we first see. I don't want to say the bullshit, because not all of it's not even been bullshit. It's actually been a lot of the time good projects that maybe are trying to get from A to B, probably don't have the ability to scale. That's not really going to work for us, who have big ambitions to scale this up. And when you do find those partners, you're going to work with them. And that's why we are we announce all of our partners. We've got 4 or 5. We're not looking to create thousands upon thousands. It's working with the good ones. And I do hope that in the future, Shade and Serenity Shield will kind of formally announce that when the time is right, once we identify a means to do so.
Awesome. Thank you very much for answering the question, being thorough about it. Huge fan of Serenity Shield and can't wait to see what you guys do going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Marty. Red, I know we brought you up here as well. You usually have very A-plus questions, so feel free to ask.
Hey, thanks for bringing me up. This should be a quick question. I think Justin might be the best suited to answer this. How will Serenity Shield be able to provide guarantees to its users the ability to use Strongbox years down the line? Because obviously this is a very forward-thinking application, and the context for this question is kind of thinking about some worst-case scenarios like contract migrations, hard forks, things like that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. It's actually something that we posed a few months ago to our group, where we say, how do we provide redundancy for this data on chain? Because, I mean, something catastrophic happens and all of Secret goes down. What do you do? So we're approaching this in a way that when we're building these partnerships with layer ones, that we're want to position Serenity Shield as a consolidator of layer ones, and that there is redundancy 2 to 3 times for every single smart contract / Strongbox. Those are one and the same, but for right now, let's say every smart contract that's written between you and chain in the form of a Strongbox will be backed up. We do find the value in redundancy for this exact reason. And this is something that came up internally, and we kind of all paused and we're like, okay, well, obviously we need to have some sort of answer to this contingency. And that's where we landed, was to make sure that we have adequate redundancy in the data that's backed up on chain, to make sure that, you can't come here and say you're going to have a DeFi smart contract protocol that's only based on one chain. If that chain fails, then you've just screwed everybody. And, we're here as users first. Like, we want to make sure that our data is also protected by this protocol too, which is actually, I think, a unique position for us, because we are thinking 5 to 10 years out. And I'm not talking about 5 to 10 years out, just, 5 to 10 years out, then this is over. I just mean like our actual roadmap being projected 5 to 10 years, and what our scalability is, and what our own internal expectations are, and how we reach those goals with, acquisition of customers and supporting our product. And that's through redundancy of where the smart contracts are actually backed up and accessed by the user.
That's phenomenal to hear. I'm really glad you guys have been thinking about this over the past few months and have already figured out ways to implement solutions to, prevent some of these worst case scenarios. Because when I first learned about Strongbox, the solution that they built, this was actually one of the first things that I thought that I would need when I first moved crypto assets to cold storage. It's like, what happens if I die, 5-10 years down the road? And I took the measures to teach the people who will be inheriting my assets how to do this. But this is a phenomenal product that you guys built, and I'm really excited to see how it further develops down the road.
Thanks. We love doing spaces like this and hosting the open forum thing, because we're just like Nico said, when you strip away the fact that we're on a team creating a product that happens to have a certain brand, pull all that back, we're just users of the crypto space too. And we just want to make sure that we're able to offer tools that we would want to use ourselves and that we want to maintain, because we're personally invested not considering the time and effort that goes into actually building a protocol, we're going to be personally invested in using the solution ourselves. And yeah, the last thing that we want to say is, hey, do end of life planning with us, but oops, sorry, the chain went down, so you died and your crypto went with it. Like that. No. Also, I'm not a huge fan of bear markets, because bull markets give me the worst anxiety you can ever imagine, because I never know what the hell's going on. And like, I wake up every morning wondering if I should sell or hold or do whatever, and that's distracting. And I really love the saying bear market is for builders. And Nico's hit on this too, that everybody here today having this discussion on a Wednesday afternoon when we could be doing anything else in the world, it's because we believe in the tech and we want to make sure that we build solid solutions and infrastructure on the tech that exists. And we're going to be the wave. It's us here and others, obviously, but like us here that are putting in the time now in a down market, we're going to be a part of that wave that actually helps create any form of mass adoption, right? It's not going to be any one protocol. It's like, oh, yep, Shade did it. We can point to this date when they did it in mass, or same thing with Serenity or any of the others. But it's really the idea that us being here today, putting in the time and all working together to make sure that our tools interact. I always give people the example of this too. Like, you might love building computers, but it's tough to get hardware and software and shit and oh my God, back in the days of DILs, like all that shit to talk to itself and communicate and work smoothly. And then you could also go and pay a premium for an Apple, which is like a native product. Well, that's great, but blockchain right now is definitely more like a Windows or Linux-based machine, where you need the knowledge and the teams working together to help patch each other's my God, what the frick am I talking about? Sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole, but basically without the communication, we're
vulnerabilities.
Screwed. This is what I'm getting at. Yeah, without communication, we're screwed, because as Dan said, we won't have the infrastructure to patch each other's vulnerabilities or even make each other aware of it, or like something as simple as, actually this did happen to us when Secret updated their network right before we launched MVP. And then we had to go rewrite a bunch of code to make sure it worked right. Well, those are going to be the growing pains and the pain points for companies that are existing in the Wild West right now. But the benefit is, without a bull market, this is what I was getting back to, without the distractions of a bull market, people that are here building now today can actually focus on making sure that the systems will be in place and the infrastructure will be in place to scale appropriately with the bull market that's coming, and then also appropriately scale with the mass adoption wave that is inevitable as long as we do things right here today.
Absolutely, man. Well, that really, I couldn't have put it better myself to wrap that up. But the bear market that we're in right now has really been a good spot for all of us as builders, and we're excited about this partnership, and we're excited to explore this more. But that'll wrap it up for today. Nikos, Justin, Dan, thank you for hopping on here. For everybody interested in Serenity Shield, you can follow their main account at Serenity Shield _. And then obviously have to plug this here as well. If you haven't signed up yet, Pinpoint Summit. We hope to see you all there. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. There's plenty of room in the shade.
Thanks, Fisco.
This has been another Twitter
Yeah,
Space.
thanks for having us.
See you guys.
Take it easy, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
And if you guys want to continue the conversation, please feel free to join the Shade Discord. Melch, one of our community moderators, will be leading a kind of panel, just Q&A, that anyone else that didn't ask questions here, feel free to go. You guys can ask questions there and discuss with the team. But appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
See you, everybody.
Afternoon.